Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
It is the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on this fine Wednesday afternoon, coming to you live from Johannesburg. And today we thought we would touch base with some of our colleagues in the media fraternity who play a very important role with what we do, and they are representing a varying host of radio stations. We've got from Alex FM, Takalane Nemangowe, who is the station manager, and we also have Lebogang Matolong, who is the station manager for Motheo FM out in the Free State, primarily broadcasting within Bloom Central. And also joining me in studio, we've got Mzuvukile Kashe, who is with the Media Development and Diversity Agency, MDDA, and he's the executive manager for projects. And we're looking at the role of community and campus radio stations in today's society. Some call it modern day, but I mean, whatevs. The community broadcasting service sector, particularly I think radio, we can all agree, still plays a very pivotal role in shaping just the state of broadcasting in South Africa, but also goes a long way towards contributing to the development and the shaping of our social construct. And funny enough, the question was, ironically, is radio still important? And I look to the gentleman here first. And perhaps let me start with you, Takalane, because my eye just caught you. I mean, we chuckle in the industry around this, but it is a question that you see pop up from time to time on social media.
Well, thank you very much for having us. I think radio is still very important within our communities, community media in particular, because one is very much accessible and cost effective. And I'm talking about, communities that, their only source of information and content distribution tool can only be, that radio or that local newspaper. So I think community media still plays a very important role in our communities, especially in this young democracy of us, where it gives people platform and also, give them an opportunity to raise their views and have a voice. So I don't think we can, manage to do away with radio at this point in time. It is still very much important in our communities.
Yeah. Let's look at the role that community media does play. Unpack for those who perhaps go, well, what is the difference between these different entities, from what we call commercial stations to community stations?
Yeah. Well, with community media, I think we obviously focus more on issues that are happening within those particular communities. And I always tell people that, there is no competition between community media and commercial. Community media is actually the feeder, the developmental institution for, commercial media, because we absorb, train, upskill these young people from these various communities to come and work here at commercial. So we are not in competition with commercial, but the role that community media plays within the community, beyond just informing, educating, and of course entertaining, is also to upskill, train, and absorb young people who have interest in the space of media and give them experience and expertise so that they can obviously come and work at the mainstream. And also, like I said, providing the voice to the community, because people are always interested to know what is happening around them. Something that is happening in the Eastern Cape might not be of interest to the people of Alexandra. Absolutely. Unless if it's a national story that is big and breaking. But, I mean, people, they always want to know what is happening around them. And that's where community media plays a role, radio in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just gone 20 past 1 o'clock. Let's take a quick break here and then we'll come back and continue.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
It is the full circle leading the conversation on SAFM. And let's jump in, Mzuvukile Kashe, on this one, who is the executive manager for projects with the Media Development and Diversity Agency. Firstly, let me get context as to the work that you do with MDDA.
Okay, no, good morning, Bridget, and good morning to SFM listeners. So MDDA, Media Development and Diversity Agency, that's the name in full, is really an entity that is established to diversify media, and it does that through the support of community media and small commercial media organizations. So, and we do this as an agency through both financial support, which is through cash grants, and non-financial support, which is mainly capacity building and research.
Okay.
So it is an entity established then through a private and public partnership to really support broadly, the community media space. Yeah.
And when we talk about diversification, what specifically are we talking about?
Well, diversification can really be a lot of things, but if you just raise a few diversification elements, one would be an issue of the content. Okay. Make sure that there's content is diversified. 2, the issue of ownership. 3, the issue of management, just to make sure that there's diversity. The content, we don't want to hear the same content. We want to make sure the content, is really touches on various aspects of really what is happening in our country. So that's diversification. And also the issue of media ownership. I'm sure all of us be aware that historically there were certain people that had ownership to media, and therefore the media was only disseminating their information of their own interest. Now we're saying no, media should then cover a range of things. So that's primarily then what diversification is.
I see. We are in conversation unpacking the very important role of media, particularly those who work within the community and campus arena. And of course, not forgetting you, Lebogang Matolong, who is the station manager of Motheo FM in the Free State. Good afternoon to you. How are you?
Good afternoon, Bridget, and very well in this hot Bloemfontein. We hope that you guys are keeping hydrated, and good afternoon to your listeners and the guests in the studio.
Listen, I think, for a bunch of media broadcasters, all three of us are breaking one of the most principled rules about studios right now in light of the heat, But let's talk about, Motheo FM out in Bloemfontein. Firstly, give me a brief history, because I think a lot of our audiences are very much familiar, for instance, with Alex FM, with Josie FM. They've done a really great job at sort of branding and marketing themselves beyond just their communities, but not very familiar with the work that you and your team do out in the Free State.
Oh, we are a 13-year-old radio station that was established in 2009. We're community-based geographically, so like Taku has just explained to you, like the difference with community and campus radio stations. So we are a team, man. We are growing. We're developing teeth. We're developing a voice. We're developing, structure. We're developing character. It's a very fairly, I wouldn't say young radio station, but it's fairly young. That was established in 2009. So most of the work that we do is community-based. We broadcast to about 116,000 people that are listening to us on a 7-day period. We provide services for community, from news to, news that are community-based, that have got an interest, and we try and make sure that we localize our news to what is happening within Mnager, which is our primary region of broadcast. And then we'll look into other aspects of national news that are worth of interest to us. And our listeners as well. So that's what we basically we do.
All right. So according to the Broadcast Research Council of South Africa, in 2021, 80% of South Africans still tuned into radio stations weekly. And of course, we know that a lot of people still very much dial into radio from traditional mediums. For you and the community out in Mangaung, What is sort of the feedback in as far as the kind of content that you do, in terms of it being relatable and those tick points that you also have to tick by way of community development, and obviously giving stage for issues within your region of operation?
This is one subject that I know Taku does not like, particularly when it comes to the BRC because of the numbers and everything. But look, we have been doing the work. We have put in the work, and one of the key things that I would like just to highlight out of what you have just said, relatability in content is key, particularly to community broadcasters and community campus broadcasters, because everybody wants to do something relevant. Like everything is relevant, but can we all relate to that?
Yeah.
So we try and pin it to, do our people relate to the content that we are broadcasting? So let's say, for example, there's a shortage of water in the northern parts of Mnager. That is relatable content to us. That becomes our primary, our primary news feature that we must focus on and make sure that our people get water. But if there's something that is happening in Velkom, for example, as a missing child, it will be part of the news, but it's not something that is within our core, because it's very far from us. Unless it maybe like it has made, like national news and we have broken it first. That's then like we'll put in much more effort in that. But we pride ourselves in making sure that we give you Mangaung-based news, Mangaung-based content, and anything and everything that is, surrounding Mangaung.
Yeah. When we come back from the break on the other side of this, I want to get into sort of, the operational challenges perhaps that plague, community stations and regional stations. I know that I think I read a stat that said somewhere around in 2019, 2020, ICASA actually shut down 19 community radio stations due to lack of compliance, accountability, and a whole host of other factors. And I'd like to find out from you guys, in order to do what you do and to deliver on the mandate that you must, by way of, community development, upliftment, skills transference, and all the rest of it, what are some of the challenges that maybe at a commercial level, we maybe don't regard or have forgotten those teething hurdles of a 13-year-old station that still needs to make bank, but at the same time still resonating within the community? It's 1:30, and Musa is standing by with the headline news.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
As the landscape shifts and things continue to evolve, radio is still very much a central means of communication for a large number of South Africans, and community radio in particular. So 2019-2020, ICASA shut down 29 community radio stations, and they cited compliance, accountability, mismanagement. And maybe let's throw it to you, Mzuvukile, first. What are some of the challenges that plague stations at a community level, especially if they're answering a very specific mandate towards the role that they play within community?
Yeah, look, Bridget, there are various challenges, but I think if perhaps we try and categorize them, one of them is essentially the issue of compliance to a regulator, which one of them being ICASA. Some of them need to comply to SARS because some of them, remember, have they work commercially. In other words, they work in terms of working with different state institutions. The other ones maybe because some of them are registered either as a community organization, either a social development or as a non-profit organization. So the issue first is compliance, if you put it by category. And the second one is obviously the issue of capacity building, capacity rather within the station. There's, because I think what Takalane said, because they're a feeder, a lot of people then, they migrate from community and they go to commercial or public broadcaster. So it leaves then a vacuum in terms of skills. So you have an issue of high turnover, so issue of capacity, because they have to retrain, train and retrain. So issue of capacity is there, because remember, in a community setup, you need to be able to have skills to go and fundraise. You have to have the skills for the content and various. So the issue of capacity also plays quite a significant role in really making sure that the station is a success. And then the third one, I think, is an issue. Then is the issue of saying the stations, for example, is the issue of proximity to to economic opportunities. I mean, if you're a community radio station, you need revenue, you need to make sure you advertise. So if a community radio is in a place where there is no business, you're really not going to survive. Because you really need to make sure that, there's business, there's economy booming around you, so that you get adverts, which, they boost their listenership, etc. And I think the last one, which is the biggest issue, is an issue of signal distribution cost. I think there we have a serious challenge. I mean, some of them, you'd see that they've been shut down by Centec, because I think the issue of transmission cost is quite heavy for community radio stations. And so I think the challenges really that are facing the sector. But my colleagues here would obviously have more. But for me, I would flag those four as saying really these are really serious challenges at a high level that are facing the sector.
Yeah. So when one takes that then into consideration, just some of the things that Mzu has highlighted there, feeder networks, revenue, high turnovers, surely then it makes your primary role as a development entity that much more difficult.
Yes, well, most definitely. I mean, a colleague from MDDA has said a mouthful and has put everything into context, that yes, there are, challenges within the sector, even though we continue to romanticize those challenges because we need to, keep on keeping on. It is so sad to learn of, stations that are being shut down every day by either ICASA or Centec due to, various non-compliant issues. But one can just say that having to take a voice from the community becomes a very painful experience, and we want to also, challenge all these institutions to come up with ways and programs that are going to rehabilitate and help these stations. How do you, and I know MDDA has been trying their best, but maybe it's not enough. You can't find a station, give them money if their house is not in order, give them capacity, train them on how they're going to spend that money. You find that there are stations that, they're operating on a personal bank account of a certain individual. That's a red flag. You find that there are stations that do not even have, they're not even compliant with SARS. They're unable to make business with government. They're missing out on government. Also, the government of the day. They've always been saying that they will commit and spend 30% of their ad spend on community media. We are yet to see that. You understand? So we continue to have stations closing down due to financial constraints and being unable to pay their overheads and even stipends to those young aspirant presenters who want to be like you tomorrow. Stations are closing down because the station cannot stay afloat. They can no longer maintain and even pay rent or other services. But now, if we were to come to party, all of us, from government, even the private sector, all the agencies to assist this, important tool to advance our democracy, it will go a long way.
Yeah. Let's go to WhatsApp and hear what's on your mind for today's conversation. Our lines are open. If you want to utilize any of them, feel free to send me a WhatsApp on 061 410 4107.
Greetings, SAFM team. This is Puli from Bloemfontein. I feel I need to actually attest to a number of statements that were made by Matolong, who is the radio station manager at Motheo FM, which is based in Nemangowe. Motheo FM is indeed a community radio station in the true sense of being there for the community it serves and actually giving back to the community that it reaches. In a sense of current affairs and addressing socio-economic issues and otherwise. And to see that in itself is a radio station that has not enough financial means, and it goes to the lengths of reaching out to people and the community economically, it really humbles us as the usual listeners of that station. And Lebogang Matolong is indeed doing a great job. Thank you.
Hey, Bridget, community radio stations are very good, However, there is a lot of governance issues. This is first-hand experience, where if you want to do business with them, you find out that they don't have a tax clearance certificate. Their tax are not in order. What do? Do they have boards? Who runs the stations? Who takes care of governance? Are they taken seriously that such things are very important? I remember even Alex Radio had some governance issues. Can your guest elaborate on that? Thanks, it's Bongi here.
Let's throw it to you, Lebogang. Compliments and kudos to you first, and then let's quickly touch on the issues around governance, perhaps, because also sometimes it's a confusion of roles. I think at community level that often interfere with a lot of things, from governance to operational.
Answer to to governance is this. We as community radio, we should stop inviting people that are just available. We should invite people that have got that best interest at heart for community media and its development. Because when you look at like board level, if you have a chairperson, secretary, and all of that, like all those people in the board, and they are just maybe like retired teachers that are just available, but they don't even know what is community radio. Where do we touch base? What is our need? What is the need of the community? What is the importance of this instrument? They themselves, when like money starts spinning in, people would want to get paid. People would want to make demands on things, and it just becomes chaotic on its own because they don't understand their role immediately. Never hire managers that is just a person that was just loud, like within the community. Hire somebody that has got an expertise in the medium itself. Hire somebody that has got experience in running an institution. Hire a person that has got an interest in developing that immediate community, to become better. That for me will stop this whole issue of non-compliance and governance, issues, because there is a very fine line. And when I say fine, like I'm emphasizing on fine, that governance always want to cross over to operations, and that becomes trouble on its own. It's a red flag.
Yeah.
If it was a relationship, I'll call that a red flag.
Gentlemen, as we wrap it up, unfortunately, I fast run out of time, but perhaps let me close it with you, Mzuvukile. And whilst we still just briefly on this issue around governance, because we've highlighted that, yes, on the one hand, it's development. Yes, on the other side, it's community-centered. But also the big component of it is that it's a feeder business. Then shouldn't we then, to what Lebogang is saying, shouldn't we then be isolating individuals that may have aspirations to being commercial and bigger radio stations at some point from a financial perspective, and let community be where you come cut your professional teeth in all the structures of the business?
Yes, look, Bridget, the issue of the governance, it's actually quite critical, and I think perhaps it's one of the pointers perhaps I did not omitted in my last statement. Look, governance is a serious issue in a community media setup, and I think my colleague here was quite clear that we really need to have a distinction between what is management and obviously what is then the governance in terms of the board, and those, there must be a clear distinction between the two, and there must not be overlap, must only to make sure that it's to manage and have a structured system of working between the board and management. Now, obviously one of our roles is to ensure that we professionalize the sector, and by professionalizing the sector is to ensure that, we have various trainings. We do trainings, we train different board, we train management, and obviously making sure that each one of these components understand what is expected of them, and to make sure that there's also not interference as well. So I think there's always been an emphasis from a point, and correctly so, Bridget. We want to create a community media space that is professional, that can also mirror the commercial and public broadcaster. I think that's why we invest so much in community radio station. I mean, we buy them state-of-the-art equipment, and the art of equipment that they have, it competes with your public broadcasters and your commercial. And the reason why we're doing that, we want to make sure that they also have quality output. We want to ensure that, when you leave a community radio station and come into commercial, you should not go there and be surprised. You must just fit in and just work, because that's the type of system we want to create. So the issue of governance, I think, is critical. We want to make sure that we strengthen it, make sure that if you go to walk into a community radio station tomorrow and walk in the commercial one, there's really no difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the ultimate goal. And I think slowly but surely we will get there.
I completely believe you, gentlemen, and we will definitely pick up this conversation from a different perspective at some point. For now, though, a big thank you to Lebogang, Takalane, and of course Mzuvukile for joining me in studio. Let's wrap it there as we usher in Made in SA.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.